This is Brent with Lykins Motorsports, and this is our 302 tunnel port that we're going to try to get some progress done on today. What I'm going to do is satisfy my OCD and torque all of the main and rod bolts, except for this dude right here, since I already got the oil pump on. Torque them in front of you, so it'll be recorded for all of internet, for as long as the internet's around. And then we're going to get our oil pump pickup on, and we're going to get our oil pan on. I'm using this custom oil pan that looks factory stock, but with the addition of these baffles and these gates to keep the oil where it needs to be. I am going to use this one-piece oil pan gasket in the event that I have to pull the oil pan off to fix the rear main seal. If you remember from last week, I had to trim off a piece of the rear main seal. That doesn't give me warm and fuzzy feelings, so I am just prepping myself for the event of having to redo that after the dyno. But so I'm going to use the one-piece oil pan gasket so that I won't have to fight any silicone or anything like that. I'll just pop it off and go in the event that I have to change the rear main seal. We'll see. So engine's painted this duplicolor satin black. I really like the look of it. It's got a kind of like almost a graphite color to it under the light, but it is a satin black and it is very nice, if I do say so myself. So I'm going to get my camera on the tripod and we're going to torque all these fasteners in front of you, and then we're going to see about getting this oil pan bolted on. All right, so can you see me? I'm holding you all accountable here. Okay, so we got our pickup mounted, and I have checked our pickup to pan clearance, and I've also rolled the engine over to make sure nothing hits that pickup. Sometimes you get into some combinations where the rods want to get acquainted with things that they're not supposed to be acquainted with. So the next thing we're going to do is pop this oil pan on. I want to make this note: if you have a pan with a dimpled rail, you need a smooth gasket. If you have a pan with a smooth rail, then you can use a dimpled gasket or a smooth gasket, either one. But from experience, If you use a dimpled gasket with a dimpled pan, they can leak. And we have an oil pan assembled. So get a coat of primer on this, wipe it down with some thinner, and get a coat of primer on it and a coat of black, and paint over our gasket, and we'll be able to put her right side up. We now have color on our oil pan. Everything is painted to match the rest of the engine, looking good. We're gonna be right side up from here on out, so I'm gonna go ahead and fill it up with 6 quarts of Joe Gibbs 530 break-in oil. And then based off of what I learned yesterday with the 289, these heads function the same way. The rocker arm studs go into water, and on that particular engine, for some reason, the thread sealant let a little bit of water by on a couple of the studs. So I'm gonna go back through and redo all that, just for safety's sake, because I don't want to have to take a couple of hours away from dyno time when this one goes down to have to redo stuff. So we've got our trend push rods here, and once I redo the rocker arm studs, get those sealed up, I can clean and put the push rods in, and then we can start putting our rocker arms on and running the valves. Goal for today is to get that done and to get the oil pump primed, and make sure that everything functions up top. I was not able to get the intake manifold off to have it cut, so that will be done on Monday for sure. And then hopefully next weekend we can get this thing buttoned up. I already have a dyno appointment scheduled, and their schedule, they were going to be gone for a little bit, and I had some stuff going on, so it looks like I think the 21st of October is when we will see some smoke coming out of this one, and out of the exhaust ports. And yeah, so let's get some oil in it and get our rocker arm studs sealed up. Okay, so we got all of our rocker arm studs back in, and our push rods are in. These are the custom trend push rods. They came in this past week. I'm going to get the ends of those lubed up, and our threads lubed up, and our valve stems lubed up, and install our Comp Ultra XD rockers, and get the preload set. So I go to 0 lash plus half a turn on these. If you want to see how exactly I do that, you can refer back to the assembly of the 289. I did a little video on that and showed that step by step. All right, so all of our rocker arms are on, ran the valves, and I haven't hit the primer yet. I've got my oil pressure gauge right here, and I just wanted to show you what you should expect as far as when you hit the drill, how quickly it should prime, and what kind of pressure you should get with these types of bearing clearances and this particular pump, which is an M68A. It is a standard volume, high pressure. You don't need a lot of volume with these little small engines. So the less oil that you put up to the top and keep in the rest of the engine is better. The standard volume pumps just don't put a lot of oil up to the top. Factory Windsor blocks are priority mains oiling, so you can be assured that after the oil gets up here, everything else is covered. So we're going to make sure our drill is in counterclockwise, and we're going to see what we got here. All right, so it's got air in the system, and you saw how the drill or the pressure gauge went to 60, and then it pushed the air out, and then it went to 80, and then when the air got up to here, you saw it spit a little bit out. That's normal. Sometimes you can hear it burgling and burbling and gurgling, whatever word you want to use for that scenario down inside the engine. That's just air being purged out. So I was getting 80 on the gauge, which is normal. And now we're just going to roll through and make sure that we get oil out of every rocker arm. Okay, all this side is oiling. Everything is oiling except for this guy in the back on the driver's side. So let me do this. And there he goes. Okay, so I'm going to get the camera out of the tripod and show you what you should expect as far as how much oil is coming out. So I'm getting you out right here. You shouldn't see a flood or anything, so I'm going to show you pressure on the gauge. Okay, if you're flooding the tops of the heads, then you have the wrong oil pump, and it's typical for a high volume pump to put more oil up there that you need. So you can see we're just barely filling the trough and the bottom of the head up. All right, let me go on to the next step here. All right, so after, this is why you do this with the intake off, is so you can do more checks. After you prime, I hit the pump, make sure each lifter is pumped up, and then I take my arm or my hand and try to push the lifter down. If you can push it down immediately after priming, then you've got a lifter issue. Okay, so I'm going to go through that and then I'll catch back up with you. Okay, so I went through and checked all of our lifters. Everything's functioning the way that it should. Let me give you a quick overview of what you should expect with hydraulic lifters. So this valve is shut, which means that there is no spring pressure actuating on the lifter itself. If I were to roll this over, to that point, so we've got spring pressure that's acting on the rocker arm, which is acting on the lifter itself. So sometimes you can sit and watch the valve slowly start to shut as the spring pressure pushes the oil back out of the lifter. That's normal. Also, what's normal is when that valve is shut, you should be able to push, well, you shouldn't, let me phrase things differently. If you can grab the rocker arm and push the lifter down, that's not abnormal, okay? Because what you have done is the spring has pushed all the oil out of the plunger, and when you get back up to where the valve is closed, then you don't have any oil to push back up against you. So that's normal. Just gonna look over a couple of things, just make sure that we don't have any leaks from our gallery plugs or our cam plug. I'll take a look at our oil pan gasket. Everything looks dry. our gauge was leaking on the floor. I got a junky Summit gauge, so that's fine. But everything's good. And what I'm going to do is just go through and double check at full lift that my push rod is far away from the rocker body, and we got plenty of trunnion clearance to the bottom of the rocker arm stud, and then we should be good to go. All right, so everything checks out, and if we had our intake manifold cut, man, we'd have this thing together. We've got, I'm gonna screw in our spark plugs. I'm using 3924s on this since the compression ratio is about 10 to 1. And these use the 14 millimeter head, a spark plug thread, which is kind of cool for the vintage of these heads. Most of the time they're the big fat 18 millimeter stuff. But we'll put all the spark plugs in, and that'll be about it. The distributor is heading back from Jim Woods. Jim does all my factory distributor recurving and repairs and that sort of thing. So we've got a factory dual point distributor that I bought for this engine and converted it to Pertronics and stuck a steel gear on it, and that should be back on the way. Got our linkage for our carburetors since we're using dual carburetors, and we're just waiting on the intake to be cut. So hopefully next week we will have this thing buttoned up and ready to make some noise. All right, guys, I appreciate you watching. I do read all of your comments. I appreciate those. Thank you for taking the time to check out my channel. And if you haven't taken time to subscribe yet, please do that so that you don't miss out on any of the cool stuff coming, like this 302 tunnel port and the other larger displacement small block Ford tunnel port head race engine that we got going on. It's going to be a doozy with a World Products block and a sheet metal intake and dry sump and just all kinds of cool stuff. We've got just got a lot of Ford stuff coming down the pipe. So probably the next FE that I'll be working on will be the time will be shared between the 420, or not the 427, the 396 tunnel port dyno mule. And I've got some really cool stuff coming from that, stuff that you guys won't believe, I'm sure. And I've got I think a 505 cubic inch FE with a centrifugal supercharger. So got some cool stuff. So subscribe so that you don't miss any of that stuff, and hit that like button. It does me good, and it kind of helps me. It pays me back for the time that I spend to put all these videos up. All right, guys, you guys have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you soon.